Welcome to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast, your weekly news roundup of hunting, fishing, trapping, and conservation stories from around the Gem State. Hosted by Fish and Game's Public Information Specialist, Connor J. Lease.
And welcome back to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin podcast. We took a week off last week. Not only was there not enough stuff to go over, but I was up in Mackay recording a couple episodes of Shooting the Bull. You will not believe some of the stories we covered on those two episodes. We'll keep you posted on when we roll those out, but back to Fish and Game news. This week on the Hook and Bulletin, we're counting black bears with trail cameras, flying helicopters over Southern Idaho mountains, and celebrating 100 years at none other than the Mackay Fish Hatchery. But first, a very important news release we need to cover detailing what you need to know about CWD as we head into deer and elk season.
The CWD Report.
Hunters in 2025 will have mandatory testing for chronic wasting disease for deer in 7 hunting units, including the addition of Unit 63A north of Idaho Falls, which was added after a domestic elk tested positive on a private game operation. Our CWD management strategy requires wildlife managers and hunters to adapt to changing conditions as information arises about where the disease is found and not found based on testing. If you're a hunter, you play a critical role in CWD testing because there is no live test for the disease, and getting accurate and current information requires annual testing statewide. Deer are more susceptible to CWD than elk or moose, so they are the only animal required for testing in units where CWD testing is mandatory. But Fish and Game will test any deer or elk for hunters regardless of where it was harvested in the state. CWD testing is free and hunters can see their results online. We're currently managing CWD through 3 main methods: statewide voluntary testing for deer, elk, and moose by hunters, mandatory testing for deer in units where it's required, including portions of Unit 1 and Units 14, 18, 23, 24, 32A, and now 63A. And thirdly, CWD management zones, mandatory testing, and other special regulations. Now currently, Units 14, 18, and a portion of Unit 1 comprise the CWD management zone for 2025. CWD testing is mandatory for all harvested deer in those units. Note, it is unlawful to transport any whole carcass of a deer, elk, or moose out of a CWD management zone, except heads or lymph nodes transported to a Fish and Game office for CWD sampling. Antlers or skull caps may be retained after sampling by Fish and Game staff, but the remainder of the head will remain for proper disposal. Heads should remain in the field if lymph nodes are removed for delivery to Fish and Game for CWD testing. Caped animals with the skull may be taken to a taxidermist or a meat processor, but may not leave a CWD management zone and must still be presented to Fish and Game staff for sampling. Heads or lymph nodes must be submitted for testing within 10 days of harvest. If hunters or those who salvage an animal retain the quarters, they should double bag all bones and non-edible portions of the animal and dispose of them in a landfill when finished processing the meat. CWD testing is mandatory in Units 23, 24, 32A, and 63A for all deer, but it does not apply to elk and moose taken in those units. Because these units are not within the CWD management zone, carcass transportation restrictions do not apply. Fish and Game also welcomes any voluntary testing of moose and elk. Our state wildlife manager, Rick Ward, said, quote, "The ultimate goal is to slow or prevent the spread of CWD because it will negatively affect the deer populations and hunting opportunities. We want to keep CWD out of units where it's not present, but we can't do that if we don't know exactly where the disease is located," end quote. Our CWD management priority is keeping the percentage of animals infected or the prevalence low in deer herds. CWD can't be eradicated because it remains in the environment for decades. Keeping the prevalence low will help maintain healthy big game populations. Active and adaptive CWD management that keeps the number of infected animals low typically reduces the spread and means fewer sick animals and more healthy deer available for hunters. Now, for more information on CWD in Idaho, check out our CWD webpage. I'll make sure to include a link in the description. All right, next up, a unique way our biologists are estimating the number of black bears in one of the state's most popular bear hunting areas. This summer, Idaho Fish and Game biologists are testing whether trail cameras can help estimate the number of black bears in Unit 32A. The pilot project is designed to determine if remote cameras can produce a reliable population estimate for the 60-mile-long unit located east of Council. Known for quality bear hunting, the unit's population trends have drawn increased attention from both hunters and wildlife managers following recent changes in hunting seasons. In wildlife management, the abundance refers to the number of animals of a species in a given area. So knowing how many animals are in a population and how that number changes over time helps biologists set hunting seasons and harvest limits that ensure sustainable populations. Some species lend themselves to straightforward surveys. For example, deer and elk bunch up on open winter ranges where aerial counts work well. Black bears, on the other hand, do not. They're mostly solitary, they favor dense cover, are mostly active at dawn or dusk, and they hibernate for months, which makes traditional counting methods pretty tough. Here's Regional Wildlife Manager Regan Berkeley.
Bears are one of the hardest species to survey, and that makes obtaining good population data to inform decision-making one of the biggest challenges of black bear management in Idaho.
Across the state, our biologists mostly rely on harvest data to monitor trends in bear numbers. It's useful data for wildlife managers, but it isn't perfect. Harvest data focuses on the portion of the population that are being harvested, and it doesn't offer a complete picture of the overall population size or dynamics. Over the years, we've continued to work on efficient and reliable methods of estimating black bear populations to supplement the metrics they get from harvest data. Prior to now, one preferred method has been using hair snare sampling for DNA analysis. The new camera-based method could offer another reliable way to estimate populations, adding yet another tool to Idaho's black bear monitoring toolbox. In early summer of 2025, Fish and Game deployed 150 trail cameras at randomly assigned locations across 32A. The cameras span a variety of habitats, from sagebrush-covered rangelands to dense forests and alpine meadows. Cameras will operate through the summer and early fall before being retrieved. Each unit is expected to record up to tens of thousands of images. Biologists will begin reviewing and analyzing the images this fall. Processing the data will take months, meaning the first population estimate from this project is unlikely before spring of 2026. Until then, hunters and recreationists in Unit 32A may spot cameras in unexpected places. If you do, they are likely part of this study, quietly gathering information that could help shape the future of bear management in Idaho. For details on how black bears are managed statewide, go see our Idaho Black Bear Management Plan on our website. All right, heading over to the Mackay Fish Hatchery. This year marks a century of fish production at the Mackay State Fish Hatchery, a facility that has been a cornerstone of Idaho's sport fish program since 1925. Nestled beneath Idaho's tallest peaks, Mackay produces and stocks more fish species than any other hatchery in the state, continuing a legacy that began when the first rainbow trout fry were raised here 100 years ago. Here's Christian Brown, the hatchery manager.
So as we celebrate this milestone, it's humbling to reflect on the dedication of the professionals that have worked here over the decades. Our mission's always been to produce quality fish to make fishing better in Idaho, and we're really proud to continue that tradition into the next century.
The hatchery's origins date back to 1924, when construction began on Warm Springs Creek near Mackay Reservoir. The original site served as a seasonal spawning and egg collection station for eastern brook trout in the fall and rainbow trout in the late winter and spring. However, supersaturated nitrogen in the water supply caused heavy mortality in the first rainbow trout fry. Later that year, the hatchery was relocated to its current location where better water conditions allowed immediate expansion. A hatchery was considered vital to meet the growing fishing demands of the Big Lost River area and its tributaries, demands that were already evident in the 1920s. Local sportsmen supported the project, helping distribute fish to area waters under the direction of its first hatchery manager, John Coleman. Mackay was the 10th hatchery in Idaho's system when it opened and remains the 4th oldest still in operation. Over the decades, Mackay Hatchery has adapted to changes in fish culture and technology. The facility replaced its original buildings in the 1930s and 60s, expanded outdoor raceways in 1951 and 1984, and pioneered the use of lightweight plastic fish transport bags in the early 1960s, replacing those heavy 10-gallon milk cans for stocking high alpine lakes. And believe me, we'll get into some of those stories in the upcoming podcast. Today, Mackay's water still comes from the same warm spring source, gravity-fed from 4 main springs with a steady temperature ideal for trout production. The hatchery operates year-round, producing 3 to 4 million fingerlings for statewide stocking and about 90,000 catchable-sized rainbow and cutthroat trout for lakes, reservoirs, and streams within a 100-mile radius. Current species raised include rainbow trout, brook trout, tiger trout, fine-spotted cutthroat trout, Henry's Lake Yellowstone cutthroat trout, West Slope cutthroat trout, golden trout, Arctic grayling, yes, even Arctic grayling, and kokanee salmon. In its 100-year history, Mackay Hatchery has stocked more than 200 million fish, representing 16 species and 47 strains at over 725 locations across Idaho. Its fish support both local and statewide fishing opportunities, including some of the state's most scenic alpine lakes. Those of us here at Fish and Game, we invite anglers, residents, visitors, whoever's listening to this podcast, to join in recognizing the Mackay State Fish Hatchery's century of service to Idaho's fisheries and outdoor recreation heritage. Now, like I said, we got a whole podcast episode dedicated to this incredible hatchery, featuring Christian and a few others who know this special hatchery like the back of their hand. Stay tuned on that. You're not going to believe some of the wild stories from this hatchery's early days. It's pretty crazy. That's all I got for stories, though, this week. Let's hit the rapid fire bulletin. Idaho Fish and Game has confirmed a case of epizootic hemorrhagic disease, also known as EHD, in a white-tailed deer in Unit 11 southeast of Lewiston. 2 more animals are suspected of dying of EHD at the same location, and this is the first confirmed case of the season in the Clearwater region. Fish and Game biologists will continue to monitor the extent of this detection. Back in July, the Idaho Fish and Game Commission approved the addition of Unit 63A to the list of mandatory CWD sampling areas for deer, which we already kind of talked about. The goal of this action is to collect additional samples to better understand potential disease prevalence and distribution for wild populations in Unit 63A after CWD was found in 2 domestic elk facilities within its boundaries. Required testing in specific units may change from year to year as we get more information about how CWD is distributed across the landscape. If you want to learn more about CWD, please go check out our CWD webpage for a variety of resources and videos. Those looking to recreate in the South Hills, Soldier, and Smoky Mountains in September may see a low-flying helicopter spraying pre-emergent herbicide on the hillsides and game management units 44, 48, and 54 to control the spread of invasive annual grasses such as cheatgrass. One of the most effective ways to control invasive grasses like cheatgrass is to apply herbicide at the right time of year. The spraying project is scheduled to begin the week of September 15th and continue through September 29th. Treatments will be conducted on a day or days where wind and weather conditions meet the required parameters for spraying treatments to occur. The popular Edson Fichter Nature Talk series is returning to Pocatello for its 5th year this September. Take this opportunity to learn more about wildlife, habitats, and human history connected to this area through this free lecture series co-sponsored by friends of Edson Fichter Nature Area and Idaho Fish and Game. These free evening chats, yes, they're free, will be held at the Outdoor Amphitheater at the Edson Fichter Nature Area every Wednesday night in September from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. Topics are going to include Shoshone-Bannock tribal history in the Portneuf Valley, importance of natural areas and wildlife habitat conservation, animal behaviors, and wild encounters on the trail, staying safe while sharing space with wildlife. That's all the news we have for this week. Thanks for putting an ear to Idaho Fish and Game's Hook and Bulletin. If there's something on your mind, or if you got a question related to Fish and Game matters, feel free to drop us a line at podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Again, that's podcast@idfg.idaho.gov. Thanks for listening, folks. Catch you next week.